Good morning. Actually, afternoon, evening, whatever you guys are listening to this. Welcome to the Compete Mentality podcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, whatever platform, welcome. It is our absolute honor to be here with you guys today on the Compete Mentality podcast. The Compete Mentality podcast exists to help you guys compete. Our definition of competing is doing what God calls you to do, even when it's hard. This podcast exists to motivate, educate, and inspire you to do exactly just that. Welcome to episode 2 of season 2. And I am here with some amazing people. My opinion, the most amazing person in the world, my wife, Courtney Delks. And with second most amazing person in the world.
After your kids, of course.
Absolutely. The Evan Maxwell. Evan is joining us for the rest of this season. We are so excited to bring him onto this podcast as a co-host. Evan and I have a very awesome relationship. Started out as a trainer-trainee relationship, grew to be very dear friends. And now Evan is a mindset coach on staff here at C.O.M.P.E.T.E Training Academy. So welcome everybody. We're excited to bring you episode 2, and we're going through a 7-week series to define the compete mentality. The compete mentality is a lifestyle, and part 2, step 2 to the compete mentality, going through the acronym C.O.M.P.E.T.E, C-O.M.P.E.T.E. And part 2, the letter O, is open-minded. And we're going to dive in to what it means to be open-minded today and how truly being open-minded is the next step and key to leveling up your life. And to understand what it truly means to be open-minded, you have to understand the mind and how it actually works. So there's 2 spaces your mind can live in. There's 2 networks, I should say. There's the direct mode network and the direct experience network. So the direct mode network, this is where the past and the future lives, okay? And the direct experience network is where all of us listening and talking on this podcast right now are, which is the present moment. So let me break that down a little bit. So the direct mode network, the past and the future, man, all 3 of us have seen studies where it says literally anywhere from like 47% of the time to like 95% of the time where people actually live, which is insane to think about. So either half your life or more is lived in the past and future and not in the direct experience network, aka present moment. And I'm here to tell you the present moment is the only space where you can experience the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Think about that. Everything is for you in the present moment. So, to be open-minded, you got to understand how the mind works. Courtney, I want you to explain to our listeners on what it looks like to be open-minded and how to use your mind to be open-minded.
We could do a multiple week series on uncovering the mind. So just a little kind of tidbit on this is, so like Jordan said, your mind, so we spend about 10% of our mind during the day, we're thinking in the conscious. Then 90% is doing subconscious things, which are things such as using your imagination. And you all know when you're a kid and using your imagination. As we get older, how many of you guys are still using your imagination? It's a powerful tool of your mind. We have other tools a part of our mind. Another thing that we have is intuition. This is also your inner voice, your inner teacher. So think of tuition. I always think of like school. You pay tuition to go to school. Well, intuition, in is inner teacher. So that is your, for those of you guys who believe in a higher power, that's the spirit inside of you. That's the inner voice. That's the still small voice inside of you, as it talks about in the Bible. And you also have intuition. Another thing that you have is creativity. My sister-in-law is the artsy one of the family, and she is phenomenal at what she does in art. On the other hand,
shout out Kelly Moses.
Yeah, Kelly Moses
Sweets
Design.
Her Cookie Company.
Sweets Her Cookie Co.
Look her up on Instagram and get you some cookies.
Yeah, phenomenal. Being creative, but we also can use our mind to be creative and to create the life that you want. And that's all. Those are just 3 out of multiple tools that we have that we'll uncover in other episodes. But tapping into using those tools of your mind and being open-minded is be open-minded. You can use your imagination to literally think of anything. You can be creative. You can listen to that still small voice telling you to maybe go do something hard, as we call competing. And that is you being open-minded too, as you're talking about this experience mode. Be open-minded to new experiences, to new ideas, and to doing new things, because you will grow leaps and bounds as a person.
So I am all about practicality. All right, let's get to how we can apply this to our life. That's what we want to give to you guys. This is how we want to help our clients as mindset coaches. How do I apply this? I know that's what you're wondering right now. So it's very simple. You ask yourself one question, and that's why. Okay? We all have blockages in our life. We all have programs that we are running our lives by how we were raised, by life experience that have happened to us. We are always unpacking our last decade we lived in. We're always unpacking our childhood. And I want you guys to ask yourself, why do I believe what I believe? Why? And keep asking yourself, why? And eventually you'll get to the root of that blockage. And so for me, if you guys listened to episode 1, I was vulnerable about my greatest fear and how I removed that blockage. My greatest fear was money, and not the poverty consciousness of not having enough money. This is a very common fear for especially men and providers. And I had to remove that blockage and understand that I will always have enough, that God knows every hair on my head, and His eye is on the sparrow. I'm not to worry about tomorrow, for today is only promised. To remove that blockage and to dive into full-time entrepreneurship. I have no idea where my paycheck is coming week to week. And that was terrifying for me to pursue my true north, what we defined last week, as your purpose, as your God-given divine purpose that is inside each and every one of us. We just got to find it. So, to get to that true north, the next step is being open-minded and asking yourself why. And so today, I want to ask Evan, Courtney, and I will also share of a time in your life where you had to ask yourself, why? Why do I fear this? Why? And you were open-minded to really who you are today and understanding who you are today. Because once you do that, and I'm going to go, I got to explain one more thing. Because truly, once you understand who you are, it's game over. And understanding who you are, all of us in this world, so the cool thing about what me, Courtney, and Evan do, we work with people of all different types of religions. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists. We work with people from all different types of backgrounds. But literally, 100% of the time, when we ask them what's going to happen to their carnal body, they all agree we're going to die someday. And we're going 6 feet under. But we all can agree that there is life for us after death. For us, we believe the Bible and what the Bible has to say about that. And we define ourselves now. Jordan, Courtney, and Evan, and everyone else, we are spirits that will live forever. Our souls. And when you identify as a spirit or a soul that's going to live forever, this is when it's limitless for you. That you can, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, move a mountain. This is when you can do all things through the Christ that lives inside of you. So, with that being said, I want you to help you get to that point where you identify as that spirit, that limitless being, and we're going to get there. You may not believe that today. You may identify as your occupation. You may identify as the sport you play. You may identify as of your past, of the sum of the life experience that you've had. And I'm here to tell you that is an absolute lie. That is not true. That is of this world. And anytime you define yourself by things of this world, it's going to fail you every time. This is why you see, like, even the most successful athletes go into a depression, spend all their money when they're retired, because they can't ever have enough. This is why you see people, we work with people, Courtney mentioned, CEOs who have tons of money, and it's just never enough because it's something of this world. So that's our goal here today in this podcast, is to help you be open-minded and to eventually realize that you are a limitless being, that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. So I want to ask Evan first, tell us the story of when you were open-minded and had to ask yourself why.
Yeah, that's a great segue for me, because in my personal experience, I grew up in a Christian home, great Christian home, great parents, great church, great community, and so I learned how to answer all the right questions, Sunday school answers or whatever. So I knew all the answers. That didn't mean I necessarily always knew how to pass the test when it came to life and applying those things, but I had all the knowledge. But I like the way you said, knowing why you believe what you believe. I don't think I really knew exactly why. I think I had an idea, but a lot of you who grew up in a Christian home, and even other different backgrounds, there's kind of a narrative and a language that goes along with that, kind of things I started to just say because other people were saying it, or because it made sense, and then it just turned into me just saying these phrases over and over again, kind of out of context and not really knowing why. And so I learned a lot of really great tools and practices in my Christian upbringing, like prayer, usually kind of one-sided. I learned how to talk to God and have a relationship in that way, and reading my Bible, really good practice. But what I found as I got older, and what a lot of people will notice, is that a lot of times, most of the time, when there's a word that doesn't fit that language or our narrative, there's a lot of resistance and oftentimes rejection. So a really good example of that for me would be meditation. Growing up, it was kind of something, when I heard that word, it was kind of a weird thing. Okay, Buddhists, that's a little different. That's not what we do. I'm going to step back. But as I grew older and found myself in situations where I was experiencing more anxiety, maybe some depression and nerves and things like that, I started to do some research and be open to some other things. And I learned that having an open mind allowed me to step outside of what I grew up learning and knowing in my programming. Not that was wrong, but stepping outside and seeing that another perspective can be right in different ways. So now I'm talking about Christian versus Buddhism. So I'm not here saying, I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died on the cross for our sins. I believe that we have eternal life through him. Buddhists may not believe that. They actually don't believe that. But that doesn't mean that they didn't find and cultivate a practice for hundreds of years that allows them to connect to God in a deep way, in a deep and powerful way that I didn't learn. So just because I didn't grow up with that doesn't mean that that's not a valuable tool that I can use to now deepen my faith in God and my relationship with God and with Jesus. So having an open mind allowed me to do that. And then also being able to see other people for where they're at, instead of judging them for doing something I wouldn't do or acting in a way that I don't believe is correct. Giving other people their perspective and their perception of things and being open to that and willing. And I think a big piece of that is me knowing exactly who I am and knowing what I believe. So now when I go and listen to other people like Muslims and Buddhists, and I'm not I'm not seeing the barrier anymore. I'm seeing a person, and I'm not afraid of losing what I already believe because I know and I'm confident in that. And now I'm approaching the conversation of, hey, I got some things and some tools that I bet could help you, and I want to hear the tools and things that you've cultivated through your upbringing that will help me. So that's a little bit of my experience with open-mindedness, and I think it also grows further. I think you heard Courtney's story in episode 1 with basketball. I feel very similar to that, and open-mindedness allowed me to go from thinking that Division I to NBA draft was the only way for me to make it. And when that didn't happen, it became a little bit like, well, crap, all right, well, now I just kind of got to give up on that and figure something else out. But through that process, I realized, wow, there's NAI where I can compete for a championship and invest in who I am as a person, play high-level basketball and still go pro. And overseas, man, people don't necessarily recognize what's going on over there, but it's a big-time opportunity and a great living. And you can still get to the same destination as the NBA. It doesn't have to be one path. So being open-minded in that scenario allowed me to go from one door that was closed and enter into another one that may very well lead to the same destination. But had I had a closed mind and said that's that, I might not be playing anymore and I'd be doing something completely different. So that's a bit of my experience with open-mindedness.
So many good things from those stories, Evan, and I love that you touched on meditation, how especially in the Midwest here where that word meditation kind of makes you squirm in your seat a little bit for a lot of people, but the Psalms say if you meditate on his law day and night, you will be like a tree planted by streams of water that will yield its fruits in seasons and its leaves does not wither. So Courtney, I'd love to shift this over to your side, and I know you have a lot to offer on the question of just share with our audience a time that you had to be open-minded and ask yourself why.
In the last episode, like Evan alluded to, I talked about 2014, coming into my senior year, not getting drafted to the WNBA, and I can remember very vividly 8 years ago standing in the tunnel of Mackey Arena. For any of you guys who've been to Purdue before, so there's a tunnel where all the teams run out, and there's this John Purdue room there, and I was standing underneath there with the chaplain throughout my college career named Marty Dittmar, and I was asking him about God's will, and I think this is a topic that is, everybody's like, what's God's will? I gotta know what his will, what am I supposed to do? And we get stuck on making a decision, and we have a choice. And I'll never forget, he was asking, okay, what are the options you have, Court? And I was telling him, okay, I can go overseas, I can get into, go be a grad assistant or get into college coaching, I can move home and figure it out. And so he took his finger and he drew 3 circles on the wall, and he said, okay, you have these 3 options. And he alluded to them like Evan did as doors. And he said, you can walk through any of these. They're all open to you. You have a choice and you have free will to make a decision. And just because, and this is where people get hung up, just because you make a decision to go through door number 2 does not mean that because you make that decision, something bad is going to happen. Because I think so many times we're like, if I make this decision, what if I get sick or I do this? Or we go to the future in our mind of we think of all these scenarios that could happen because we choose that one. That's not living the present moment, and that's not being confident in the choice you're going to make. So God's will, there's not one perfect, you got to choose this or you're outside of God's will. Choose it, and God's going to be there with you because you have the Spirit living inside of you. And so I remember that time, and Romans 12:2, I love that verse, says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So when you renew your mind, so I went from a different perspective when Marty talked me through those things of just renewing my mind and just being still and really deciding. I ended up coming back home was the choice I made. And I was open-minded during that time to starting a basketball training business on the driveway that I grew up on, and kids started coming. And that is where C.O.M.P.E.T.E Training Academy started, was on the driveway, and here we are today. But that was, I can remember that 8 years ago, where we were at and making that decision. And during that time as well, for those of you guys who have played collegiate sports, or maybe you've had a hobby you're really interested in, you get to this point where it's like when you don't have that sport, you don't have that hobby, or you don't have that job, maybe you retired, and you have to find something for you to do. And I remember being open-minded to, Jordan actually got to hunting, and something I'd never done my whole life, being open-minded to it, and going out in the woods, it's an experience, and I've learned that hunting is something that we can do as a family if we spend time together, which is one of my true norths, and it's something you can go out and be quiet, and it's such a beautiful time of connecting with God and seeing the woods come alive, or the woods, kind of go into sleep. And now, fast forward, our son absolutely his passion is hunting. And so those years, back then I was like, I wanted to spend time with Jordan, but I'm like, why am I getting into hunting? And it's fun, but like now I can see it. It's a way for me and our family to connect with our son, whose passion is hunting. And so that's two kind of stories of being open-minded that led to an entrepreneur, a business starting on a driveway and getting into hunting, that now I can connect with my family and my son.
So, guys, our challenge for you today is to be open-minded in your life. Ask yourself, why do I believe what I believe? Why? And eventually you'll get to the root. Ask yourself, why do I fear this? And ask yourself again, why do I fear this? Why? And eventually you'll get to the root. The way that you will find your true north that we talked about in episode 1 starts with being open-minded. Starts with asking yourself hard questions, unpacking your childhood, unpacking your life experience. And to do that takes hard work. It takes time to be still. That's why the scriptures say, be still and know that I am God. You will find him, James 4:8, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. You will find him when you are still. And this takes hard work every day. The world comes at you so freaking fast every day. And most of us are living our lives completely not on purpose, dictated by the way everyone else is living their lives, dictated by the way things happen in your day at you. When truly, I'm here to tell you, Courtney's here to tell you, Evan's here to tell you that you can create your own life. And you have a divine purpose. You have a divine true north. And it's inside you. But you got to go find it. I can't find it for you. Courtney, Evan cannot find it for you. We can help you, but we can't do it for you. There is a true north for you, and it starts with being open-minded. So, we are so honored that we could be with you here today on this podcast. If you missed last week, go check it out. It's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. And we would just want to encourage you to live a life that is abundant. John 10:10 says, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But Jesus came to give you an abundant life. That abundant life is for you. Romans 8 says the same power that rose Jesus from the dead lives inside of you. And you can tap into that power every single day. This is what we call the compete mentality. This is the lifestyle that we call, the movement that we call of what it means to compete. Thanks for joining us today.